I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, June 7th, 2024. The first story, and I don't think this counts as in case you missed it, because if you're watching this, it's unlikely you missed the news that Park Lawn is going to be taken private by a combination of Homesteaders Life Company and Birch Hill Equity Partners Management Incorporated. We'll have a full story in next week's edition of Funeral Service Insider. Actually, we'll email you that story when it's done being written, but I wanted to at least touch on it because there are some things that have, I think, maybe been underreported, and I wanted to share them with you. Primarily, it's this idea that Homesteaders is not in the funeral business. Homesteaders is in the insurance business. And by buying Park Lawn, one of the things that they're going to be able to do is A, keep all of these funeral homes functioning well and funded. The difficulty with Park Lawn, and we saw it in some of the comments about their last quarterly report, is that its margins aren't sufficient to support a public company. They're making plenty of money. They're just not making so much extra money that they can continue to hand it out to people who don't work there. And in a way that makes it worth other people's investment, apparently. The upside for homesteaders is they're already in the funeral business. They know that returns on things like this can take a long time, and they have the money and the time to wait. So this provides them with more equity in different funeral homes around the country, and it provides Park Lawn with a little bit less pressure so they can focus more on operating their funeral homes rather than serving their investors from quarter to quarter. This is more a year, decade over decade kind of proposition. Anyway, tons more to report on that funny little story. I'm just back, as I said last time we spoke, from the Kates-Boylston Funeral Service Business Plan Conference in Warwick, Rhode Island. I've been saying Warwick. It's Warwick. Who'd have thunk? But anyway, and at that conference is when the announcement was, the first day of that conference, and I happened to come down at the same time as Chris Kruger from the Foresight Companies, and I said to him, "Hey, did you hear about this Park Lawn deal?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did the Park Lawn deal." And so we had a nice chat about that. And again, I'll report on all of that in next week's editions of FSI. We'll be sending out these updates on email, although they will appear in the print edition later on this month. Kind of a weird story from central to upstate New York, outside of Buffalo. The town of Tonawanda, New York, has passed a state law that will ban an operating crematory in Sheridan Park, called Sheridan Park, in Towanda. There are two senators who have been trying to close or move this crematory down for a long time. They don't like having it in the neighborhood. The crematory did have several accidents is a weird way to put it. Several times people saw smoke coming from the crematory. They were fined earlier this century for having black smoke coming out of their crematory and for not meeting EPA rules. They fixed those, but a recent snafu with a breakdown that it caused more black smoke made the state move to revoke their grandfather clause license. The company had opened a crematory in 1998, just before crematories were outlawed in New York, which also was a full 22 years before the pandemic, when New York was forced to ship many of its deceased people to other states to have them cremated because it didn't have the capacity for a catastrophe. And it still doesn't. And it looks like they're kind of more determined to not have that go on. It's an interesting story to go with news out of Pennsylvania, which is kind of the next, in case you missed it. But I'm going to kind of combine them out of Pennsylvania, because the state of Pennsylvania is expected to sign a bill that will reduce the requirement of crematories to operate at 1,800 degrees and allow them to operate at 1,600 degrees. And according to everyone involved, this will not only save a lot of money and reduce the carbon dioxide output, but it will also make things safer for the funeral homes and surrounding neighborhoods in general. The governor is expected to sign the bill, although there is no date set for that yet. All links, as always, in the show notes. I wanted to report. I usually don't report on English funeral news, although I could. It's interesting if you have any Google alerts set for funeral service or funeral home or funeral business. England does a great job of reporting on its funeral industry in the mainstream news, and I get tons of story from England. What I thought was cool about this is it is June 6th as I record this, June 7th as you're listening. Gay Pride Month has begun, and there are lots of stories about gay people in funeral service and gay people trying to change funeral service and gay people trying to just get out and let everyone know that funeral service can be changed to make it more comfortable for the LGBTQIA plus community. This story is about Stephen Corp. He is 53 years old, and he's running for Mr. Gay Great Britain 2024. It's really interesting because he's kind of a role model, and that's, the competition is for who can be a role model. But it's interesting because he's my age. He is 53. I am 53, and he, like me, remembers the 1980s and the AIDS epidemic, and before that, laws against homosexuality. I was fortunate enough not to ever be targeted because I don't happen to be homosexual, but those people who were had a really tough time of it. And it's a global tragedy and a global embarrassment, and it's good to see that he's taking it in stride. And one of the things that he said, I wanted to keep it aside, is that he has now become part of the establishment, and the establishment wasn't a place that wanted him. And now, being part of the establishment and understanding how the rest of the establishment works, he wants to work to help people come to better understandings, I guess. So it's worth keeping an eye on. It's always cool to see funeral directors in the news doing great stuff, even if it is abroad. Wabash County, Illinois coroner Sean Keeps has maintained a frugal office by using equipment and vehicles from his family's funeral business for official county duties. He says he has saved the county between $7,000 and $10,000 every year since he's taken office. However, he has gone to the county to ask for more money. Since he uses his own vehicles and equipment, he charges the county about $250 per month, but as expenses, I guess, continue to increase, it's become harder and harder for him to foot the bill. He recently had a salary increase, bringing the coroner's salary, which is a part-time salary, up to $15,500 a year. But he said even part-time, that is below the current minimum wage. And he would like the county to buy a vehicle for him because he's afraid that if there was an accident while he was in his own company vehicle, then his company as well as the county could be liable, and he wanted to try to keep things separate. The county's taking it under advisement, and we'll follow this story and report back as necessary. And that will do it for this week's In Case You Missed It. I have been Tony Russo. I wrote and edited it. It is produced by Kates-Boylston. You can find everything we talk about, most things we talk about, at Kates-Boylston.com. If you are listening, please subscribe wherever you're listening. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe there. We do this every Friday. We do it most Fridays. As I said, we were traveling last Friday, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to the week of June 20th, I may try to report from our offices in Rhode Island. We'll see how that goes. But for now, thank you very much, and we will check in with you next time.